You know that feeling of jealousy, right? We've all been there. But what if that feeling wasn't just a feeling? What if it twisted and became your unshakable reality, a dangerous one? That's what we're getting into today on The Explainer, a condition called Othello syndrome. And this really is the core question, isn't it? At what point does normal suspicion or jealousy completely cross the line? Because crossing that line, that's when a simple worry morphs into this rock-solid conviction. And, as we're about to see, a conviction like that can be incredibly dangerous. Okay, so to really understand what's going on here, we've got to start at the very beginning, with the building block of this whole thing, the delusion. Now, that's a word we throw around all the time, right? But in a clinical sense, it means something very, very specific. So what are we really talking about when we say delusion? Look, this isn't just a strong gut feeling or a stubborn opinion. A delusion is a belief that is completely false, but it's held with this absolute conviction. And here's the kicker. No amount of proof, no logic, no evidence to the contrary can shake it. For the person living with it, it's not a belief. It is reality, period. And that brings up a really important point. How is this different from, say, an obsession? Well, think about it like this. Someone with an obsession often knows their thought is irrational or intrusive. They might hate it, but they recognize it's senseless. With a delusion, though, the person sees their belief as totally rational. It makes perfect sense to them. And that, right there, is the crucial difference. All right, so you have this delusion, but when does it cross over into being an actual diagnosable disorder? Well, it's not always a super clear line. It really comes down to how that delusion shows up and impacts a person's life. Delusional disorder has some really distinct features. First, these delusions stick around. They aren't just fleeting ideas. It also tends to show up in middle age. But here's the part that might surprise you. Often, the person can seem completely fine in every other part of their life. They can hold down a job, pay their bills, hang out with friends, all while this intense, false belief is running in the background. Now, a lot of people might hear this and immediately think, oh, so it's like schizophrenia? But nope, and the differences are really, really important. With delusional disorder, the main thing is this very specific organized delusion. But, and this is a big but, their overall ability to function day to day is often untouched. That's a world away from schizophrenia, which can involve a much wider decline in functioning and other symptoms like hallucinations. Okay, so with all that groundwork laid, let's zoom in. We're going to focus on one very specific, very dramatic, and frankly, very dangerous type of this disorder. It's the one that gives this whole explainer its name. I mean, the name says it all, doesn't it? Othello syndrome. It's pulled straight from Shakespeare's tragedy, and that's no accident. It's a huge clue that we are not talking about everyday jealousy here. We're talking about a suspicion so deep, so consuming, that it can end in absolute tragedy, just like it did in the play. So what is it exactly? At its heart, Othello syndrome is the unshakable 100% conviction that your partner is cheating on you. And this belief isn't built on any real evidence. Instead, tiny, innocent things, a missed call, a friendly conversation, get twisted into proof. And if the partner denies it, well, that's just more proof that they're lying and trying to cover it up. And when you look closer, a few patterns emerge. For one, it's more common in men. But here's a really tragic twist. Sometimes, to just make the fighting stop, a partner might give a false confession. Just to keep the peace. But that's the worst thing they can do. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. It just confirms the delusion in the person's mind. And on top of all that, harmful alcohol use can often be in the mix, making everything even more volatile. And make no mistake, this isn't just something happening inside someone's head. It's not a private struggle that stays contained. This powerful, consuming belief inevitably spills out into the real world. And when it does, the results can be absolutely devastating. Yeah, that warning right there, that's not just for dramatic effect. There's a reason clinicians take this so seriously. Because when someone is that convinced they've been betrayed, they can be driven to do some pretty desperate things, to punish the cheating or stop it from happening again. Just look at that number. Let that sink in for a second. 26%. That is a staggering statistic, and it's exactly why we need to be talking about this. Studies have found that in more than a quarter of these cases, this kind of jealousy boils over into violence. And yes, that can even mean homicide. This is the point where a false belief becomes a life or death threat. So, with the stakes being this terrifyingly high, the obvious question is, what can anyone even do about it? I mean, how do you possibly manage a condition like this? And more importantly, how do you protect the people who are in danger? When things get this serious, the number one priority above all else is safety. Forget about treatment for a second. The immediate focus has to be on practical steps to protect the partner. That means getting the police involved if there's abuse, connecting the partner with support groups, and sometimes the only safe option is a legal separation to create that physical space and break the cycle. Okay, so once those safety measures are in place, what about the clinical side? Well, the main tool in the toolbox here is medication. Antipsychotics are really the go-to treatment to try and dial down the intensity of that delusion. And for people who have a hard time sticking to a daily pill routine, there are even long-acting injections that can help. And this quote, wow, it really gets to the heart of how difficult this is. Supportive listening is generally not effective as the patient does not listen. It's a brutal truth. You just can't argue or reason someone out of a delusion. It doesn't matter how much logic you use, how much proof you have. To them, you're the one who's not seeing things clearly. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly difficult question. When the person you love becomes the biggest threat to your safety because of a reality that only they can see, what do you do? How do you protect someone in that situation? It really shows you the tragic, tangled mess that is Othello syndrome. It's a profound challenge, not just for the people living it, but for doctors, for families, for all of us.